Hello, in this presentation we will create a budgeted profit and loss within QuickBooks Online. We will have a comprehensive QuickBooks Online course soon, if not available yet. We also have a comprehensive Excel course which complements the QuickBooks courses and a QuickBooks Pro desktop version course you can find at the link below. Here we are in the QuickBooks Online dashboard. We will be continuing with the Get Great Guitars problem. We're going to be looking at a budget, specifically the budget related to a profit and loss or income statement type report. In order to get started, we'll first take a look at a financial statement for the income statement and talk about the budgeting process. Then we'll go in and create the budget. So we're going to go to the reports on the left side. We're going to go to the profit and loss. Here is the profit and loss, or we can type in profit and loss into the window there. We will then select the date. We're really going to look at the month of February. So 02/28, let's make it 02/01/21. This is going to be the month we will be working with, 02/28/21. And so it's going to be February 1st, 2021 to February 28th, 2021. And we will run that report. Here is our report for the month of February. Now, when we're thinking about the budget, of course, we are going to be budgeting forwards. And we won't get into all the concepts of different types of budgetings and ways that we can budget and the best ways to think about budgets. What we will say is that even though we should be projecting into the future, really the first place we start oftentimes is going to be something of what happened in the past. So we're looking at our income statement. We're looking at what will happen in the future, and the last month is a decent starting point to think about what will happen next month. So that's why we're starting here. We're just taking a look at our income statement. Here's our revenue, cost of goods sold, and our expenses. What we will do is now create a monthly budgeted profit and loss and think about and project what we think is going to happen in the next month and in the rest of the year here using that budgeting process. Now, again, that being said, the fact that we use past data to project out in the future, that's a very simplified budget. We really want to adjust for that and make any kind of forward-looking adjustments to say things like increasing in revenue or whatever type of expenses or things we might be investing in the future as well. And we'll take a look at how to do that. Some of those changes just in terms of logistically, how do we put that into the system in terms of QuickBooks. So we're going to start the budget here. To do that, we're going to go up top to this little cog item. And then we are looking for the budgeting option within this information. So we've got the budgeting option. It's under Tools and Budgeting. We'll select that item. And so we're going to add our first budget. So if you don't have anything in here yet, you'll have this little add button. We're going to add things in the first budgeting option. Now we're going to make this a bit generic. We're just going to call it the budget. And we're going to call it 2021. And I'm going to change the date to the realm that we're working in. We're, of course, are working in the future. So it would probably be picking the correct date range if we were working in real time and current time. We here are going to be going January 2021 to December 2021. And we're going to have a monthly budget that we will be entering, and we're going to have data will not be pre-filled. Now this option is kind of nice that it will give you that information. It'll say, hey, do you want me to take the data from last year and put it in here? And then you can kind of make adjustments from there. That could save time. We're just going to build it from scratch and just show how to put this information into the system from scratch. So we have here, as we can see, our income statement amounts. We are dealing with the income statement. Now there should be a preview item across the screen, and then if there's a next button down here, you want to select the next button, and then we'll have the actual input screen. So we'll have the budget up top. Then we'll have our income statement amounts, and we'll be able to put the input information here. We are, in essence, putting this information, kind of copying what we had in February, that being our full month. And we're going to put that in for the full year, all the way January through December. And that'll give us a year's worth of data, so we can compare month by month and year-to-date information. So we're going to scroll down here, and the first item we're going to have is sale of products. So we're going to have a lot of some blank items because this is taking everything from our chart of accounts. If we're not using some accounts, we might want to go to the chart of accounts and clean that up and delete some of those items. But we are just going to go through here and into the data that we have information for. So we're going to say 500 to the sale of product income. Now, if we believe that number is going to be static all the way through, we could just select this little icon and that'll basically copy it through to the end and give us our total. If we believe it's going to go up in value, as we do here, we're going to say there's a 15% increase. We're just going to have to we're going to go through here and just tab through this and say that January it's going to be that, and then February it's going to be 575, and then 661.25. I'm tabbing through this, 760.44, 874.51, 1005.69, 1156.54, 1330.02, 1529.52, and 1758.95, and then 2022.79. So we're just going to copy through the whole thing and put in those adjusted numbers within the system. The last one here is going to be 2326. So that's a bit of a tedious type of activity. All we did there is basically increase it, I believe, by the 15%. So we're saying it's going to increase by 15% through the process. And as of now, we got to put that information in there manually. So if it's the same number all the way across, we can enter the same number. If we have to adjust them for increases or decreases to the budget, then we're going to need to make those adjustments. We're going to do the same for the rent of music equipment. We're going to say that it's 1,000, we believe, for January. And if we wanted to just copy that across, again, we just copy that across. But if we think it's going to go up or have a change, in this case, we're going to say it's going to go up by $1,000, then we'd have to actually go through here and tab through and say it's 2,000 here. And then if we tab through this information, so I've just made those adjustments here, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. We're thinking it's going to increase by that $1,000 all the way through this process. Then we had the service income. So we're going to have service income down here, and we're going to budget for the service income starting with 2,500. And once again, we're going to say we could just copy it across, but if it changes, we'll have to manually input that. So if we copied it across, it would look like this. If we make the change, we're going to go in there and increase it by $500 for each month. So we've entered that information. Again, the best way to do that is really just to tab through this. So you want to tab through and just enter the data through as you go. Then the next side we're going to go is the cost of goods sold. So we're going to take a look at the cost of goods sold. So we're going to scroll down a bit and get down to the cost of goods sold. And it'll have the same information. Now the cost of goods sold, we're going to increase it in the same format that we did the merchandise sales, because it should be linked to the merchandise sales. So if our profit margin is the same all the way through, then we should have a similar increase in the cost of goods sold as we do for the sale of merchandise. So we're going to say here it's 400. And again, we could just copy that across like so, but it's going to increase as we did the increase, which I believe was a 15% increase for the merchandise income. So this is going to increase in a similar way to 460, tab, and then we'll tab through this information as well. So here's our information for the cost of goods sold. Now we're going to go down through the expenses, which are typically a little bit easier because they typically are things that we can just copy across. They'll typically be the same from month to month. We're going to start with the bank service charge. It's going to be 120 that we're going to estimate, and I'm just going to copy that all the way across. So we have the 120 all the way across. Then we've got I'm going to enter that. We're going to say that there's depreciation. So I'm going to scroll down here. Now the depreciation we put down here, I'm going a little bit out of order. It's in the other expenses. So I'm going to say that one is going to be next. And I'm going to say that is going to be 775. And then again, we'll just copy the depreciation across. We're going to then go back up. I'm going to hit enter. So it goes back down to the next row. Then we are going to be looking for the insurance. So into insurance expense, I'm going to scroll back up. Just look for the insurance expense. And here we have it. So January insurance expense, we're going to say is 1,000. And I'm just going to copy that across. So the 1,000 will go all the way across. And enter. And then the next item is interest expense. And I believe that's up top. We put that up here. So interest paid, we'll say interest expense is 300. We're going to copy that all the way across and enter. And then the next item is the internet. So internet expense right here. And we're going to say that that's going to be 150. We'll copy that all the way across, the 150. Then we have payroll, so we'll scroll down here to payroll and we'll say that's going to be 6,000 and copy that all the way across. Then we have telephone and we select enter, so we're on the next line or else it gets kind of messy. Then we're looking for the telephone expense. Telephone expense is going to be down here, and that's going to be 360, and we'll copy that across for the telephone expense and enter. Then we'll have the utilities. I'm going to scroll down to the utilities expense, and that's going to be down here, utilities expense. And we're going to say that's 650, copy that across, and enter. So if we scroll back up, we've got the payroll, and then we have got the utilities. So that's what we're going to enter. There's a lot of empty cells here, and we're not going to put everything into every category. One, we might not be using that category. If we're not using the line item at all, we might want to eliminate it. And two, it might be something that's not really significant to the budget for whatever reason, and not in terms of dollar amount, it might not be large enough for us to be budgeting for. And so we're just going to keep it as is here. We'll save this, we'll take a look at it, and if we need to make any changes, we'll come back here and make those changes. So we're going to first say save this information, and then we'll go to the reports. I'm going to close this back out. We're going to go to the reports on the left side here. We're going to type in budget, so we'll type in budget into the window. We're looking for the overview first of all, so we're going to take a look at the budget overview, and we'll select this report. So the date ranges that we have here, we're going to say are going to be, we'll say for the quarter, of 01/01/21 to 03/31/21, and that'll give us a quarter's worth of information, and it is the budget, that's the correct one, and let's run that report. And here we have our budgeted information for the 3-month time period, January, February, and March. And we have the total, of course, summing these up for that quarter's period of time. It is looking like a typical income statement, a typical profit and loss. Here's the net income budgeted for the 3 months and the quarterly. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back in here and change this bank service charge. We're going to say, okay, we made an adjustment. We think after going back and forth, as typically will be done oftentimes when budgeting, we're going to make a change. I'm going to change this $120 to $30. So to do that, we're going to go back to this little cog over here, and we're going to go down to the budgeting. So we're going to go to the budget item, and we'll select this budget. That's the one that we want to edit. I'm going to say edit on the right side. We're going to edit this budget. And then I'm going to look for that bank service charges to see that we can go in here and make any type of adjustments. This 120, I'm going to go through here and just make that 30 and copy that across. And that'll give us a new total. That'll be the only change we'll take a look at right now. And we'll just enter that, make sure we're on the next line to make sure it saves it, and then save it. And then close this back out. And then we're going to go back to our reporting by going to reports. We're going to select the budget. It's going to be the budget overview we want. And the date range, once again, we're going to say that's going to be right, 01/01/21 to 03/31/21, January 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2021, the first quarter. And then we're going to run that report. And then we've made this adjustment down here. So we can go back and forth and adjust this $30 and make any type of adjustments we need to do within these budgets, and that'll adjust the total net income as well. Let's go ahead and print this thing out. So we're going to go to, or export it. We're going to export it. So we will export this to Excel. We're going to open up that Excel document. And here we have our information. Now we're just going to save this. We're going to save this to wherever we want to put this. So we'll go to the File tab. We're going to go to the Save As within the File tab, and we're going to say Browse to locate the folder we want to save in. We're going to put this into Excel Docs 11. That's what we're going to name the folder. It's going to have the name of the company, and it's got the name of the report. We may want to adjust this and shorten it down, take the name of the company out, possibly put the date first, but I'm just going to keep the default here. So we're going to keep that default. And there is the budget overview report. The other useful report is, of course, the budget versus actual report. So what we budget, what we think was going to happen compared to what did actually happen. This report then would be run after the time period has been run, so we have some actual data there. So we, of course, have actual data for January and February. So we will run a budget. So we're going to go to reports on the left side, and then we're going to type in budget, and you should have the two reports, budget versus actual, the one we want at this time. We're going to select that budget versus actual, and then we're going to scroll back up top. We only want the first 2 months, not the full quarter, because we only have 2 months of actual data that we have input at this point. So we're going to say 01, 01, 21, 2, 02, 28, 21, January 1st, 2021 to February 28th, 2021, and run that report. So here we have our information, January and February, and we have our detail. And it gives us some nice information in terms of what actually happened. This is from the data that we input. This is from the budget that we input for January. This then is going to be the difference in terms of dollar amounts, and then the difference in terms of percentages. So this is really important to have both of those. It's nice to have both of those because these percentage changes we could then use to compare to similar companies that have different dollar amounts, whereas the dollar amounts wouldn't be as comparable to companies of a different scale, of a different size. We then have the same information for February, and then we have the total information giving us that comparison as well. So a report like this can look pretty intimidating to look at this kind of report because it's got a lot of numbers on it, but it's not. If you take it one piece at a time, it's just an income statement, and then it's going to have the comparison of the actual income statement, the budget, two income statements, the difference between the two, and then the percentage. Now the percentage is a little bit different than we might think if we're comparing like two income statements. We would take the change. This would be like the change if we were going from January to February, and then take the change divided by the original number. Here we're going to take the actual number, which happened 2467.4. That's what actually happened, and divide it by the budgeted number 500. And in this case, if we move the decimal 2 places to the right, 493. So that's obviously a lot different in January. January, our first month of operations. So the budget might be a little bit different. So then we have the 508 divided by the 2500, and that'll give us our change here. So 20.32. And again, I know we put this information into the budget just basically to show how to put that information in, so the numbers may not be exact compared to this particular business or the best budgeting process that we could have had through this. And of course, if it's the first month of operations, that could often be the case. There could be a lot of changes, and in that time period, the budget might not be the most stable of things. But in any case, that's the comparison. We're going to go ahead and export this to Excel as well. So we're going to select the export option, export to Excel. Here's our worksheet, and we're going to open that up. Here is our budget versus actual report. If we take a look at the printing options here, it's always a good idea to look at the printing options. We'll go to the page layout on the bottom right. See what that looks like. There's a big line or a cut right between the middle of it. That's not good. So we're going to go back to the normal view. And we see that's where the page break's going to be, and we would rather not have a page break right down the middle of the columns. So first thing we do to try to fix that, we're going to go to the page layout view. We're going to go to the setup tab, select the orientation, and move it from the portrait to landscape. So here's the landscape orientation. Does a better job. It's almost there, not quite there. Best way to fix it from here would be to kind of adjust the columns, but it looks like there's kind of a lot of data. It might not be doable. We're going to use the kind of cheat function here. We're going to go to the side, and we're going to try to force this to work by going to the side, I should say. We're going to go to the File tab, and then we're going to go down to the printing options. And I'm going to pull this up just a little bit on the window because we're looking down here to the scaling option. So I'm going to pull this up just a little bit so we can then scroll down and see the scaling option. Here it is. It's going to have a drop down. So when we drop down, we don't want to fit to one page necessarily. I'll choose that just to show. If we do that, it makes it very small possibly. And we might want it more than one page long. It fits it on one page wide. That's what we want. But I don't really care if it goes 2 pages long. So I would rather fit to all columns to one page, not the entire thing. And in this case, it works out to be the same, but it may not if it had a lot of data going from the up and down portion. And there we have it. Now note that if you use that option, you don't really have any control over the font size or anything. If you're printing multiple reports, then your font's going to be all messed up in different sizes. But it does fit on one page, and that's better than having 2 pages. So that's what we're going to go with. We're going to go back to this area here. And now let's save this. So we're going to go to the File tab once again. And we're going to say Save As. And then browse for the location we want to put this information. We will put this into Excel Docs 11. So that's going to be where we're going to save this. I'm just going to keep the name the same. We might want to adjust it in practice to put to shorten this would be probably pretty good. But I'm going to keep it there. That's just the default. To shorten it, I would suggest having the date and then removing the name of the company possibly and whatnot. So anyway, save that. And there we have it. So those are the 2 reports, budget versus actual and overview.